So Newcastle University was not a real living wage employer in 2018. And then it became clear that actually there's more people in the university that wanted to move that whole thing forward, and the time seemed to be right. And the Deputy Vice-Chancellor, Professor Julie Saunders, formed a real living wage task and finish group, and a kind of group in the university to do that, bringing different people together. And as part of that, wanted a listening campaign. So what we did was, and I led this training 45 staff and students of all levels of staff, all levels of students, and it was just magic. So getting that number of people trained in terms of how you do a listening. We had to do a pilot first, so I just got friends and people who got involved in citizens from the university, a few students, a few staff, to just go out around the campus, listening to people and talking to people, because can you just ask about people's pay? Is that something you can ask? Is that, where do they want to be asked? Anyway, we did that pilot, and then we trained 45 people, and then we, with a lot of help from different people in the professional services, we got about, 30, 35 more, whatever, focus groups going on around the place that these listeners, these people trained, listened to in pairs. We listened to more than 200 people who at the current time were not being paid real living wage. They were cleaners, they were in catering, hospitality, they were around porters, around estates. They did all kinds of work around the university. And what we realised was, we asked them two simple questions. One was, do you think the university should be a real living wage employer, and what's it like working here? And the people doing the listening, they sent us the notes, so we got 89, 90-something pages of notes back to look at, and synthesise that down to report. But those voices went to the executive board, and that was quite powerful. And I think, and that plus the modelling that the university did, that Julie Saunders did with her team and other people, the modelling about staffing, the modelling about kind of grading and all those kind of things, plus the academic input. So somebody came up with a thing from the Smith Institute report in 2018 that found that if 25% more businesses paid the real living wage in the north of Tyne authority, they'd bring in something like £29 million to the region. Yeah. And at that time, we only had 30 living wage employers.
The lowest percentage of living wage employers in the whole country in the northeast. But we also have the biggest used food bank and the highest number of people on 0-hour contracts.
And now, how many do we have?
Now we've got almost 160.
160?
Yeah.
Goodness me.
So we can tangibly say that the campaign, if you want to think about transformative versus stick and plaster, we've given thousands of people in the region a pay rise. But I think it wasn't a passive process.
Okay.
It wasn't just that people went and listened to people and then wrote a report. The people who were sharing their stories were actively involved.
Absolutely.
So there was a fair work campaign.
Absolutely.
It wasn't just tell us your stories and then we'll take it away and we'll do good
That's
things.
A really good
it was
point.
Share us your stories, and do you care enough about this that you want to change this? Do you want to be part of this?
That is indeed what we said.
And it led to some amazing big meetings with cleaning, portering staff, catering staff, who said actually we're ignored often and we feel like a missing bit of the university. And I think it was...
We were listening not just for the stories, but we were listening for people that were cross enough, cared enough, had enough of it to get involved with the whole process. And we got one or two people to actually be involved as listeners as well.
Yeah.
So people who were not paid real living wage did the listening as well as being listened to. And they have subsequently been involved in other work to look at their jobs. And they said things like, there was a profound feeling of not being important and of not being listened to, not being noticed, which we started to address, and still needs a long way to go, but has come in a massive way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but I think because the university is an anchor institution within the region, it sends a message to other employers that this is a standard of good practice.
Yes.
Most of our organisations talk about poverty and inequality and how dreadful it is and we've got to do something about it. But the majority of them are paying poverty wages. And our challenge to them is, if you really care about this, you have to pay a real living wage. How can you pay staff at a level that they can't afford to live on when you're talking about poverty? Yeah. And I think the university's kind of set that marker that, we've got to do that.
But it's harder for the university to say that when we actually are quite we're a much more affluent organisation than some of these very small organisations who view themselves as entry level for people just getting their foot on You know, that's their argument to that, isn't it?
Yeah,
No,
well, a
we're
lot
just,
of small
we're just paying.
organisations pay it, not able to. A lot of the voluntary sector organisations do. I think it's about putting that marker that you can employ more staff if you pay them all less. But is that really the model that you want to put out there? Because you're dumping your economic waste on our region. That we then have to deal with all the consequences of that. The food bank usage is one of them. So I think it does set a marker, and it does encourage others to follow. It's the first university in the Northeast to pay the real living wage. We've got 4 others, and I really hope that we'll see all of those other 4 follow.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
And any university out there around the country as well.